So with the next hand here, we have, let me get to it here. So we have 7-9 of clubs, and this one's actually pretty interesting here. A very aggressive player raises in second position in full ring. And I toss in a call on the button because we're a little bit deep, and I haven't, and I just thought the blinds might come along once in a while. There's kind of a weak blind in there. And, it was a little looser call for me. I'm not a big suited connector guy even in position because I think they're way overrated unless stacks are deep. I just decided for whatever reason to toss in a call in this particular hand, and I'm sure it's fine. So the flop comes 10-10-3 with 2 clubs. So I flop a flush draw on a paired board. And I haven't really messed with this guy too much, and I've been kind of giving this guy a lot of pots, and I thought, you know what? He shouldn't have a whole lot of 10s in his range because he doesn't open too super light from under the gun. Not a whole lot of people do in full ring. Generally, it's not that they always have the goods. It's not always ace, king, and aces and kings and all that. But it's generally some type of pretty good playable hand. Not a whole lot of 10s in there. So maybe a jack 10 suited or something might open once. I don't know. There's just not a whole lot of 10s. And so this particular opponent, who's really aggressive and fights for every pot, bets 36. And so I decided to make kind of a smallish raise because I think it can accomplish a lot of the same things as a larger raise, and also it saves me a little bit of ammunition. I don't want to go trying to commit ourselves right away on the flop. And I'm also not really raising because I want to get the money in. I'm not raising, because I have a flush draw or I'm going to have decent equity against everything but pocket threes, or not raising for any of those reasons. I'm really raising because I know I kind of have a backup plan. I can hit some cards that are probably going to make my hand the best. And but I'm mostly looking to just play them off of everything. Because I can get aces to fold at some point there, I think, if I play it properly, he's not going to have a whole lot of 10s in there either. So I'm kind of looking to just outplay him right there. I'm trying to use that paired board and be like, hey, I floated you a jack 10 and I'm going for value now, or ace 10 suited or something like that. I should have a 10 much more often than he should have a 10 there. But chances are, I obviously don't have a 10 and he probably doesn't have a 10 either. And so he does something very strange, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me playing it this way, is he raises me back to 192. And so what's going through my head now is that, okay, he probably is totally full of it, because I just don't buy this line that he's going to play a 10 here too often unless he has ace 10 or pocket threes, some really nutty kind of 10, or pocket threes who's trying to get the flush draw to put the money in, drawing dead, or just make sure that that he continues to build the pot against another against trip 10s. But so I thought that's possible, but I also thought the most likely scenario is that he doesn't think I have a 10 and he's trying to play me off the hand. So I decide that if I jam, it's going to work a decent amount of time. However, I'm also going to get the money in real bad and sometimes drawing dead on the flop. And so I decide that it probably looks stronger. It probably looks more like I have a 10 to this guy if I flat here, because then it looks like, okay, I've got the total nuts. I don't want to keep this guy away from everything. He's not going to think I'm going to call the flush draw on a paired board facing all that action, I don't think. So he's probably going to give me the most credit for a 10 if I play it this way, as opposed to jamming over the top with him on the flop, which looks like flush draws are probably a bigger part of my range in that case. So the turn comes a really strange card. It comes a 3. So now I'm kind of ruling out pocket threes a lot for him, and the 10 is still perfectly likely. However, at this point, if he thinks, maybe we both have 10s at this point, he's not as excited about it because he just assumes we're just going to chop. So he checks the turn, and so I decide that there's really no sense in me putting in a super large bet here, because I should either be in a position where I'm either totally screwed, like I'm completely drawing dead because he has a 10, or something crazy like quad 10s or pocket 3s, or I should just be able to just sneeze on the pot and he's going to fold, because he just has air and he thinks I have a 10 now, and now he thinks I voted, and there's just it's a hopeless situation for him. So I figured that since I figured given that logic, there's no reason to put out any sort of large bet. So into the $438 pot, I bet 115. So we're talking, right around a quarter of pot, somewhere in there. And he just absolutely turbo folded. So I think that was a pretty well played situation there. I feel like I risked less playing it that way to try and play him off the hand as opposed to jamming on the flop. And I also possibly looked stronger. So I think I had a little situation of having my cake and eating it too. So that's always a nice spot to be in poker. To the next hand, we have Ace 8. And this is one that we can, it's not going to take a whole lot of time to explain, but I think it is important sometimes just knowing kind of what you can represent in certain situations and knowing people's tendencies. And so here in this spot, we're pretty deep. I'm playing on a deep stack table. I've got, almost 250 big blinds. My main opponent here has around the same. And I pick up Ace 8 on the button. I just decided to min raise. The big blind was super aggressive. Small blind was kind of passive, really fishy type guy. And so I figured, sometimes I min raise, sometimes I make it 3 or 4x, just depends. But here I just made it 2x. So I get called in both places, which is going to happen a lot deep stacked when you just make a minimum raise. And I'm okay with that, that's fine. And the flop comes King, King, 5. So no flush draws. We have spade, club, hearts, rainbow. And the weaker opponent, small blind, leads out right away for 18 bucks. And so the big blind, who's like a good aggressive thinking player, does something that most good thinking aggressive players would do, which is realize that there's just nothing this kind of fishy guy is representing here. Why would he just lead out for 18 into a $40-something pot? And he figures he should be able to shut me out because my range is probably super weak, just min raising the button. And it's a great spot for him to try and take the pot down with King, King, 5 board. And so he raises to 68. And so I see it go bet raise in front of me, and I've got nothing. But what I do know is that the small blind very, very, very infrequently has a hand as strong as 3 queens. He's usually got something like 5-6, or he's got just total air. There's just garbage in this guy's range. There's nothing that's ever going to play a big pot. And so I know that the good aggressive player is going to just pounce on that play, almost every time. And so to me, this seemed like a situation where I have the ability to look the strongest. I have position. And so what I decided to do is, rather than putting the action right there on the flop and re-raise, which I actually think might induce sometimes, because this guy's pretty solid here in the big blind, it might induce him to actually come over the top, because what would I really be re-raising with? My range is so narrow to be re-raising with there. It should only be pocket 5s that's trying to just continue to build a pot against, hoping he's up against 3 kings. Or it should be a really good king, like king, queen, or ace, king, which is unlikely when I just min raise the button. So I didn't want to put myself in that position of maybe him coming back over the top of me, because stacks are deep, there's plenty of play. And so I thought it looked strongest by me just cold calling there. So I cold called 68. And on the turn, it was a jack, and he checked to me, and I didn't mess around trying to make a tiny bet or any, I wasn't trying to, just get away with a tiny bet, figuring that his range is super polarized. I didn't want to mess around making him think that he had any ability to outplay me or give him any ideas. And so I just made 145, which was not too much below the pot size, and I took it down. He turbo folded. So, you don't always have to let other people be the ones to exploit obvious plays. Don't be afraid to get in there and do the same yourself.